Dark and Darker, as a looter extraction game, has a very solid game loop and progression, with said progression primarily taking place through obtaining more powerful equipment. But what happens when a player wants to test their equipment and skills against other players directly, and without the needless interjection of the rest of the map, random spawn points, and even third parties? That's where the new arena mode shines. Ahoy! I'm Captain Happy, and this is a video about the new experimental arena mode in Dark and Darker, and what it means for the game as a whole, as this mode changes a lot about the entire game. Arena mode makes the rest of the game better, even if you don't play it yourself. Let me begin explaining by first giving a short description of what arena mode actually is. The new arena mode is a 3 vs 3 party v party exclusive mode, which means you can't even queue by yourself without filling the empty slots, in which the two teams each begin in a random room out of 8 that all surround a singular chamber made to resemble familiar rooms from the various maps in the game. The teams must survive longer than their opponents to win the round, and need to secure 3 rounds to win the match. There are plenty of monsters inside of the main room, and also plenty of treasure chests, all filled with stuff ripe for the taking and yours to keep if you win. Treasures respawn every round, and sadly, so too do the monsters. Now, you might be thinking, how is this much different from simply running High Roller? But the two modes differ in many ways, such as the key feature that gear brought in is not lost on death so long as it was found by you, which carries a lot of implications for the rest of the game. But I'll get more into that in a moment. For now, let me paint a picture of how the game was before Arena. See, people used to run High Roller mode as a way to test their kits and skills against other players also attempting to do the same. It's a contest, and a fun one at that. It is arguably the penultimate goal in the game to get good gear and best other players with it. But High Roller mode comes with some hefty costs, in the form of the risk of losing absolutely everything you had spent such time obtaining, and this can be extremely off-putting to a lot of people. Tantalizing, but risky, and therefore not something that appeals to a grand majority. But what if you were able to test your kit against players in not only a compartmentalized fashion, but also essentially risk-free? Enter Arena mode, where you can do exactly that. You can fight people at the press of a button, and you don't lose any of your gear when you die. Mind you, again, the gear needs to be found by you in order to be kept between losses, which, like I said, adds a whole new side to Dark and Darker that makes the game all the more captivating and engaging. This is where Arena mode makes the whole game better. See, before Arena mode, players found gear and it was either good for them, good to sell on the market, or vendor trash. Likewise, players had 2 means of getting good gear into their hands: coming up on it randomly, or buying it on the market for gold. Players often got their good gear through the marketplace, as stuff obtained there would not only be curated to exactly what the purchaser wants right down to the stat numbers, but it was identical to any of the same thing that you could have found exploring a dungeon. Plus, at the cost of only your gold, it was super easy to boost your own power level. You could spend a few thousand gold and be ready to enter High Roller and potentially lose it all. But now with the inclusion of the arena mode, and its requirement that equipment brought in be found by the player whilst adventuring to be risk-free, players have a whole new reason to adventure and find the good gear themselves. Players must actually enter the normal dungeon modes and risk High Roller themselves to get gear that they can then use in the arena mode and keep forever. Gone are the days where High Roller is pursued only by the cocky and foolhardy, and here are the days where High Roller is a place to risk a whole kit in pursuit of a coveted piece. Players have a baked-in incentive now to obtain a separated arena set that they never take into adventure modes. In this way, arena mode makes the rest of the game better simply by existing, in giving the players not only more ways to play, but also self-imposed incentives and goals that result in more dynamic approaches to gameplay. But the benefits of arena mode's existence don't stop there, as its effects can be felt even by players who don't play it. With the game largely being a PvP experience, it stands to reason that the goal of fighting other players is something most players have on their mind. With arena mode being the de facto place for those seeking those fights, it draws players directly seeking PvP away from the other modes, making them slightly more peaceful and PvE oriented. If every player is adventuring to find arena gear, most adventuring will be less willing to get into a fight. Why risk it all for a fight when there is a way to risk nothing? The added benefits of the existence of the arena mode are especially felt in this way if you are the kind of player that doesn't enjoy PvP as much. When trying to adventure and complete quests, you are less likely to run into hyper-aggressive players because the lot of them that are looking for PvP are getting their fix in the arena. If any arena players are in the adventuring modes, it's likely that they have taken it upon themselves to find gear for use in the arena, making them probably less likely to want to commit to a fight with someone else for fear of losing what they have found. The arena mode itself is at the same time extremely inviting to those unfamiliar with PvP, as there is realistically no risk involved, providing a safe place to test kits and builds out, or even practice fighting other players. It is a place where newer players can become more familiar with fighting players without any of the drawbacks that come from trying to do so in the adventuring modes. As such, the inclusion of the arena mode is an absolute net positive for the game as a whole, even if you don't play it yourself, so it should... Oh, it's a limited time mode. Oh, it's back already. Let's hope that doesn't happen again. As I was saying, it should definitely stay a staple mode in the game and not go anywhere. That's all I really have to say on the subject. So, I've been Captain Happy, and if you've enjoyed this analyzation, then consider subscribing. Also, I do voice acting if you're into that. And of course, whether you've got a drink, smoke, food, or even nothing at all, cheers.